Alice? She was standing inside the second room from the left. The room that should have been empty. Why? My mind was still reeling. Where had she come from? As I was trying to form a sentence, she began to move towards us. From around me, I heard a chorus of muted gasps. It seemed we were united in our surprise and confusion. Alice drew to a stop in front of me and glanced up at the display.
Thought you'd get an easy couple points, huh? Not so easy when you have to look your victim in the eye, is it, coward?
Me, a coward? You've got some balls saying that to me after you picked Betray. Why are you even here?
Well, you gave me the antivirus, didn't you? Tenmyoji told me. Thank you. I mean that from the bottom of my heart, honestly.
But you should still be under the effects of the anesthetic.
Yes, well, I still am. A bit. I have a throbbing headache, and I can barely stand. It's horrible. I'm more resistant to anesthetics than most people, a result of my training. I have a feeling Zero Senior knew that. They gave me way more than the standard dose of that gas when they kidnapped me. In any event, a few minutes ago I woke up in the infirmary. Tenmyoji explained what was going on, and I got here as fast as I could.
So you showed up right after we'd gone into the AB room?
Yes. Right in the nick of time, too. About 10 seconds before the deadline, as I recall.
You did that just so you could betray us?
Right. What? Don't I get to do that? I mean, it turned out to be the right thing to do, didn't it? You two chose betray. If I'd stayed back there, I'd have lost 2 points.
So you're saying it was self-defense?
Yes.
You're full of shit. Self-defense my ass. You chose Betray because you wanted out. You had 6 BP. If I had picked Ally, you would have had 9. That's what you were trying to do, right?
So what if I was?
Are you serious? You would have killed me. Stimmt, wir haben gar nicht mehr so viele Punkte. Look, I only have 1 BP. You were this close to murdering me. Just admit it. You were planning to kill me so you could escape.
Don't be stupid. I knew you'd choose betray. There was...
Tell the truth.
That is the truth. Why am I the only one getting the 3rd degree here? Look at those results. 2 other people just tried to kill someone.
Fine on Dio.
Yes. If Dio had chosen Ally, Fi would have killed Tenmyoji. And if she'd chosen Ally, Dio would have killed her.
I don't want to be rude, but it looks like Clover and Kay tried to trick one another. Not that it seems to have worked. If either one had chosen Ally, the other one would have 9 BP right now.
I turned to look at the results again. Before, I had only been looking at my own. I hadn't realized that there was only one word all across the roster: betray. Whatever trust we'd managed to build had fallen apart. Everyone was suspicious of everyone else. Had it been the bonds? Or had it been something else? Whatever the reason, if it kept up, we would never manage to escape. We'd be trapped in a cycle of 0-point rounds for the rest of our lives. Something had to be done. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Alright guys, pay attention. You've probably already all figured this out, but we can't keep going like this. If we don't start being a little more trusted, we're never gonna get out of here. We need to work together. Might as well have been talking to a wall.
My apologies, Sigma, but I need to think on something for a bit. I would appreciate being left alone.
Okay.
I'll be leaving too. Things are getting a little too intense here for my delicate constitution. Sorry.
Deal.
Well, in that case...
Hit 2-5.
Yeah, sorry.
Without another word, she turned and left the warehouse. And Theo and Kay quickly followed suit.
See? There's your answer. In the end, everyone's just thinking about themselves. So I would appreciate it if you could not treat me like I'm the only villain here. Come on, Clover. Let's go.
Hold on! I'm coming! Are you feeling okay? I was really worried, you know?
I watched them walk away, Clover practically jumping with delight to have Alice back. Before long they reached the yellow door and disappeared beyond it. Well, shit.
Everyone's gone.
You aren't going to leave too?
No,
Are you sure? I chose Betray.
I know, but I still believe in you, Sigma. I think your hand must have just slipped or something, right?
My chest hurt, and when I blinked I felt something hot and wet prick the corners of my eyes. Luna, I bit my lip. Before I could think of anything to say, the metallic rumble of the doors closing echoed through the warehouse.
The Ambidex Gate, Round 3, Star Keys. There is no set. The Ambidex Gates can be opened.
As many times as we want, huh?
Yes, as long as we have the star keys. That means we can keep playing the AB game over and over, too. Sigma? Could you show me your bracelet?
Why?
Do you remember what Zero Jr. said?
Also, die Farben und so ändern sich. Yeah, I remember. Let's see here. I'm a cyan pair. What about you?
I'm a magenta pair.
I wonder what the others are.
They could be anything, I suppose. We won't know until we have a look.
We've got about 80 minutes until the next set of chromatic doors open. So, what should we do now?
Everyone else has gone off on their own.
Oh, willkommen zurück. Alle anderen sind weggegangen. Also nicht im Chat, sondern die ganzen anderen Leute. Weil, ja, keiner traut sich mehr. Alle haben Betray gewählt, keiner traut sich mehr. Ja, physically and emotionally. I really don't like how this is going. Und Sigma hat versucht, sie irgendwie wieder zusammenzubringen, aber keiner wollte wieder. It won't matter how many times we repeat the AB game if nobody trusts anybody else. We'll never be able to get out of here.
Maybe it would help if we all had a common goal. Something to unite our hearts and minds.
Yeah, but we've already got something like that. We all want to get out of here. That seems like a pretty clear goal to me, but everybody chose Betray, including me.
Well, what if we have an enemy?
An enemy?
Yes, a common foe, like the person who set the bombs, for instance.
After coming back from the lab, I had told her about the bomb while she gave Alice and Quark the accelerator. Yeah, that might work. If we can figure out which one of us planted those bombs, then everyone else would work together against them.
Right.
But how do we figure out who it is?
Well, do you have any clues?
Clues, huh? That's right. The memory card. Ist bei den anderen das Internet denn okay? Also liegt's vielleicht irgendwie an mir? Wobei bei mir ist eigentlich alles im grünen Bereich und ich streame nicht mit 60 FPS. I pulled it out of my pocket and held it out toward her.
What's this?
I told you, a memory card. It was under the bomb we found in the lab. I think whoever set the bomb dropped it.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know what's on it though. I couldn't find any kind of memory card reader.
Oh, I guess we can't really use it then. Oh, wait a second. You know what? I think I might have seen something.
Huh?
Yes, I remember. The infirmary. I saw it when I was searching the infirmary with Dio and Quark. There was a memory card just like that one.
Then...
Yes! I think we can see what's on it. The computer there should be able to read it.
Dann schauen wir doch mal nach. Luna and I exploded into the infirmary, nearly running into Alice, Clover, and Temyoji. Quark was there as well, of course, but he was just as we'd left him, asleep on the bed.
What are you doing here?
I opened my mouth to retort, then thought better of it. If I really wanted people to start trusting each other, well, real change starts at home. As quickly as I could, I explained the second bomb and the memory card and how we'd come to the infirmary in hopes that we could discover the contents of the latter.
Okay.
Then stick it in already!
Go ahead.
Right. Just as Luna had said, there was a small slot under the slot under the screen, exactly the right size to fit a memory card. Within moments, the screen was filled with what appeared to be random letters. Huh. What is this?
6 rows, 22 letters each.
It looks like the odd rows use one set of letters, and the even rows use another set.
Oh, stimmt, es wiederholt sich. CQUJH, hier wieder CQUJH, BYOL, BYOL.
In other words, the first 2 rows just repeat.
Yeah.
Is this some kind of code or something?
It doesn't look random to me. I think there might be a pattern. I just don't know what it is.
Was there anything else on there?
No, it doesn't look like it.
So all we get is this gibberish. Hey Alice, you haven't said anything for a while. What's up?
Does any of this look familiar to you, Clover?
What do you mean?
Have you seen something like this before? Maybe during your training?
Training?
This is...
So you do recognize it.
All right, knock it off, you two. How about you share it with the rest of the class?
Alice sighed and stretched her neck from side to side.
I believe this is an encoded message from a terrorist organization.
What?
They call themselves the Myrmidons.
Oh ja, über die haben wir ja schon was gelernt. Myrmidons? For some reason I felt like I had heard that name before.
What are the Myrmidons?
Put simply, they're a bunch of thugs who are trying to destroy or dismantle most of human civilization.
So this thing we're looking at, you think it's theirs?
Well, they have a number of different codes, but I do think this is one of them.
Then the bomb?
It was said by one of the Myrmidons, wasn't it?
Yes. Well, I can't say for sure, of course, but it seems likely.
Damn, I have got a ton of questions for you, but let me start with this one. What the heck does that thing say?
I don't know.
What?
How am I supposed to decode it? I don't have the key. Without a key, it would take literally hundreds of years to decode.
What about you, Clover?
Well, if Alice doesn't know how, I sure don't.
See.
Not much we can do then. We can come back to that code stuff later. I've got another question. Alice, Clover, who the hell are you? Why do you know about this code?
That's...
You told me your job was to eliminate enemies of the state or something like that. Just what the hell kind of job is that? I think it's time you told us what you do.
Sorry, but I can't.
Why not?
Because you might be one of them. You might be the person who set the bomb.
That's idiotic. Of course I'm not...
Really? And where's your proof? For all I know, you're my enemy. I can't tell you anything.
I'm not your enemy. I'm your ally. I'm your friend. I just want all of us to get out of here. Just please tell us. Please. We need to find out who did this so we can all escape. We have too little information. We need your help. Fine. If you won't tell us about yourself, then just tell us about the Myrmidons. What else do you know about them?
I'm sorry.
Before I could blink, she'd leapt up and run out of the room. Hey, wait, Alice! I took off after her. Ist sie wieder im Garten?
How long are you going to keep following me?
Until you tell me what you know.
Then why don't you just ask Clover?
Clover?
You already know she works with me.
Well, yeah.
Then why don't you...
I wanted to hear from you.
Why?
That's a good question. Remember the crew quarters? Or this garden? We got paired up for 2 separate rounds. That means I've spent more time with you than anybody else here. Maybe that's it. I guess I'm just curious about you.
What are you talking about?
She spun around to hide it, but I caught a blush of red on her cheeks. We walked down the path to where it ended next to the pond. I stayed silent. Alice sat down on the bench. We gazed at the smooth surface of the pond for several long minutes before she began to speak.
You don't hate me?
What? Why?
I tried to kill you.
You mean in the AB game?
Yes. I was so scared. Who wouldn't be? Kidnapped and locked up, forced to play some sort of bizarre game, and then we found that bomb. I know I probably sounded calm, but as soon as we found that thing, all I wanted to do was run away from it as fast as I could. Things just went downhill from there.
What do you mean?
I remember hearing that Quark had collapsed and running to the infirmary with everyone else. When I got there, I realized I couldn't understand what anyone was saying.
Oh, Radical 6.
And everything looked... I don't know how to describe it. It was like watching a video on fast forward, only it was real. Then I started to feel like... It's hard to explain. I guess you could say I didn't feel like I was myself, and it only got worse.
That was probably the Radical 6.
Yes, I think so. I don't remember much after that. But when I woke up in the infirmary, suddenly all that fear was back. So all I could think about was getting out of this place as fast as I could. It never even crossed my mind that it could kill you. God help me, even if it had, I don't think I would have cared.
Na, immerhin ist sie jetzt mal ehrlich.
See? I'm horrible. You hate me, don't you? Just do it!
What? Do what?
Kill me! Get it over with!
What the hell, Alice? I'm not going to kill you. I don't even hate you.
You're lying! I could have killed you! I would have killed you!
Come on, calm down. No one's killing anyone. A single tear rolled down Alice's cheek. Then another and another, leaving shining lines across her face. When I reached out, I saw her tense just slightly. Slowly, I brushed my thumb across her cheek and off, taking her tears with it.
Why are you doing this? You know, you kind of remind me of my father.
That's who you were after, right? The people who killed your dad?
Yes.
Did they have anything to do with the Myrmidons?
Will you promise not to tell Clover that I cried?
Come on.
If you keep your mouth shut, I'll tell you what you want to know about myself and about the Myrmidons. Deal?
Sure. My lips are sealed.
Really?
What crying? I don't remember any crying.
Good. All right then.
Alice took a deep breath and began. My father is Egyptian, but my mother is French. They met when my mother was in Egypt on vacation and married shortly thereafter. When I was 3, we all moved to the US. My father was a scientist and his field was cloning. He was recruited by an American lab, which was why we moved. Both of my parents had used English around me from the time I was born, so I didn't have any problems adapting to life in the United States. By my 9th birthday, we had been there for 6 years. That was when it happened. In the middle of the day, my mother showed up at school. Her eyes were red and puffy, but she didn't say anything to me on the drive home. When we arrived, there were several policemen there to meet us. My father had always been a very punctual man, and when dinner time came and went with no sign of him, even I began to realize something terrible had happened. It wasn't until several years later that I finally learned the truth. My father's lab had been attacked by terrorists, and he had been kidnapped. Wahrscheinlich, weil Klon-Research gemacht hat, ne? For the rest of my childhood, my mother raised me by herself. I didn't realize it then, but it must have been incredibly difficult for her, as a single mother alone in a country where any relatives were a transatlantic flight away. She did her best not to let me see it, but every so often, when she thought she was alone, the mask would fall away and in every line of her face I could see exhaustion and loneliness. As much as I missed my father, it was those moments that made me wish more than anything that he had never been taken. Fortunately, I was an excellent student and did especially well in math. I earned a full-ride scholarship straight out of high school and spent the next several years studying. After graduation, I took a job with the Department of Defense, hoping that they might have the resources to help me look for my father. I was immediately assigned to the Special Office of Internal Security. Their purpose is to investigate and sometimes deal with terrorist organizations and other serious threats to the state. I could tell my mother wasn't happy about my decision, but she chose to remain silent about it. Eventually I learned that the terrorist organization that had taken my father was none other than the Myrmidons, although at the time that name didn't mean anything to me. They were suspected of human cloning. Specifically, it was thought that they had been using cloning techniques to copy their most useful members and expand their ranks. The Myrmidons apparently believed that they could use cloning to create a new race of humans. Now, at last, I knew the reason for my father's abduction. The commander of the Myrmidons is a man named Left. We know his name and his gender, but not his appearance or his age. The Myrmidons are closely associated with a cult known as Free the Soul. We believe that Free the Soul provides their funding. By trying to pin any kind of misdeeds on the cult's leader, a man named Brother, is like trying to nail Jello to a wall. Brother is supposed to be fairly advanced in years, and rumors say he's so old he can't even get out of bed. Unfortunately, his mind seems to be as sharp as ever. At that point, I hit a wall. I knew the Myrmidons had been behind my father's kidnapping, but that was all I could learn about them. Then one day I got a tip that some of them were hiding in a building in the Nevada desert. Was aber ja nicht stimmte, da waren ja Arkane und Dings Aoi. I headed out immediately. On the way there, my car had some engine trouble and stalled out. I was trying to decide what to do when an SUV appeared out of nowhere. I'll give you one guess who was behind the steering wheel. Clover. That was the first time we met. There were 4 other people in the car with her, and when I asked them what they were doing, I got what was just about the last answer I'd expected. They told me they'd been locked up inside of the very building I had been on my way to investigate, and that they were currently in pursuit of the people who had kidnapped them in the first place. My priorities shifted very quickly. After a short discussion, I convinced them to allow me to come along. My hope was to find the people they were chasing, who I was certain were Myrmidons. In the end, however, we were unable to track them down. In fact, I still don't know where they might have gone. Eventually, I took Clover and her companions to SOIS headquarters. We decided that involving the police would only complicate things. After some questioning, it was determined that the people who had instigated this particular event were not connected to the Myrmidons. We did, however, discover that the mysterious disappearance and subsequent reappearance of several children 9 years prior was connected to Free the Soul. Also das Nonary Game, das Ace geleitet hat. There was also a 6th person in the SUV, although they weren't riding in it per se. A middle-aged man, who I'll just call H, Hongo, for now, had been bound and placed in the trunk. According to the other 4, he had been behind the disappearance of the children 9 years earlier. We also learned that his pharmaceutical company, a major player on the world stage, was effectively controlled by Free the Soul, OHA. More specifically, I suppose, Hongo was a member of Free the Soul and very committed to their cause. So why had he kidnapped all those children? Apparently it had been part of an experiment designed to test the ability of certain people to access what's called the morphogenetic field. I don't imagine you've ever heard of it before, so I'll try and give you a quick rundown. Simply put, these people can access a sort of field that allows their consciousness to resonate with the consciousnesses of certain other people. To be honest, it might be simpler to just call it telepathy. The SOIS had heard of this particular ability before and had actually used it in a number of investigations, so I wasn't surprised to learn of its existence. I was shocked, however, to learn that these experiments had been carried out by a member of Free the Soul. If that was the case, then Brother must have known about it. The thought of him discovering a way to control and harness the power, that power, was terrifying. It wasn't too long after the incident in Nevada that another tip about the Myrmidons crossed my desk. This time it claimed that the Myrmidons intended to launch a large-scale biological terrorist attack. My bosses decided that we needed more agents to deal with a threat of that magnitude, and Clover was recruited. Das ist ganz cool, weil das jetzt noch die Story, die Clover uns mal erzählt hat, ergänzt. Because she had been a test subject in Hongo's experiment, we knew she had the ability to access the morphogenetic field, and we wanted to put that ability to use. After several months of training, she was sent on her first mission. Da hatte sie uns ja erzählt, als Clover uns alles Mögliche über ihren Job erzählt hat, dass das eine Falle war. She would be tasked with the infiltration and investigation of a Myrmidon cloning lab. I was assigned to be her commanding officer. I hoped that our investigation might also give me a lead on my father's whereabouts. At last, I had a chance to find out what had happened to him. I wouldn't let that chance pass me by. Perhaps that was what kept me from noticing the truth. The whole operation was a trap. The lab was fake and Clover was captured almost immediately. I got there as fast as I could, but when I arrived the building was only an empty shell. All of the conspirators who had pretended to be researchers and the like had already fled. I searched frantically for Clover until at last in a basement room I found her. She had been tied to a chair, but on the floor next to her was another body. It was my father. Oh, scheiße. He looked as if he had just been dumped there, and when I got to him, his body was already cold. He was covered in dark, ugly bruises. It wasn't until later that I learned he had died from ruptured organs and internal bleeding. Jesus! They had beaten him to death. As soon as Clover had been captured, a Myrmidon in a mask had come to visit her. He'd said that unless she wanted to end up like my father, she would leave them alone and tell her masters at the SOIS to do likewise. In retrospect, they must have known who I was and who my father was. That was why they'd killed him. Perhaps they thought they were sending a message to me, or that once he was gone I would lose my reason for chasing them. They were very, very wrong. I took Clover with me and left. I tried to console myself with the fact that I had at least been able to save her. Sometime later, I received a call from the coroner. Coroner? He told me there was something I needed to see. Ich weiß, was ist der Gerichtsmediziner, aber wie spricht man das nochmal aus? Oder der... There in the morgue was my father. Oder der Obduktionsdings da. Cold and pale on a steel table. I could barely stand to look at him, but the coroner insisted. On his arm were 2 rows of numbers comprised of 8s and 9s. Oh. It took me a moment to recognize my father's handwriting. He had carved them into his own skin. On his chest was another message, but they were letters this time, not numbers. Not many, just enough to make a short sentence. I love you, Alice. I broke down crying right there in the morgue. They were the first tears I had shed since the operation had started, and there was no stopping them. There would be no forgiveness, not for the monsters who had put my father through this. They destroyed my family. I would make them pay, even if I had to die to do it. That night I made a promise to myself I would avenge my father. It didn't take long to figure out that the numbers he had written were latitude and longitude. They pointed to a chemical factory that had been disguised as an abandoned building. Further investigation revealed that it was the mother lode we'd been looking for, the headquarters of the Myrmidons. I think my father must have known how things would turn out. Knowing he was going to die, he had written the directions to our enemy's fortress on his own body. He had sacrificed too much for me to waste this opportunity with recklessness. This time our operation would succeed. This time I wouldn't let my excitement put Clover or any of my other agents in danger. So we took our time, we gathered information, we did our research, and we planned. Finally, we were ready. December 25th. Now, 2028 was going to be the day we finally set foot inside the Myrmidon stronghold. But then, on the 22nd, only 3 days before the operation was scheduled to begin, a man in a gas mask appeared. So, you inhaled that gas, passed out, and woke up here in the AB room.
Well, there it is. Everything that's happened with the Myrmidons and me. I left a few of the details out, of course, but you get the idea.
Ja, thanks. Das ist das erste Mal, dass meiner Meinung nach Alice auch mal ein bisschen sympathischer wirkt, weil man mal ein bisschen mehr von ihrer Hintergrundgeschichte erfährt. Sie ist trotzdem in vielen Momenten voll die fiese Kuh gewesen, aber ein bisschen kann ich mich jetzt mehr in sie hereinversetzen. She gave me a sad sort of smile and stood up.
We should go back.
Not yet. Your story explained a lot, but there's still one big question.
Which is?
Who here is a Myrmidon? One of us planted the bombs. And based off the code we found, it's pretty clear that person is a Myrmidon, right?
Yes.
And I agree that we need to figure out who they are.
What do you propose we do?
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about. Do you have any clues?
Well, if I could decrypt that code, it might tell us something, but...
How can we do that?
I told you, we need a key. Without that, it's pointless.
What's a key?
A key is a key. It allows you to sort of unlock a code. The Myrmidons usually use this huge string of numbers as a key.
Wait, a long string of numbers? Could that be you? Huh. Seven 815361098838094241990551.
What the hell?